If you can provide a vision and a purpose for the organisation, then they'll attach to that.
And what's the biggest thing people don't understand about hiring?
Maximise the time we spend talking to the individuals and less time at the back end screening through resumes. We had to build an infrastructure that wasn't currently there overnight.
How do you think about the assessment of skills and what's critical there?
What balance of skills do we need to deliver right now but also will be valuable for the future? Hiring managers still, have that mindset that they need to hire someone like them.
What do you think are the big opportunities in talent?
The things that are most important to me are ensuring that
Welcome to Higher Thinking from Sydney, Australia. I'm Pat Morsey, your host, and today we're talking with Lauren Delane, Head of Talent Acquisition for CHEP. You might know CHEP for their ubiquitous blue pallets and their focus on optimizing more than 300,000 supply chains globally. Today, I get into the details with Lauren about what talent looks like globally. Headlines for this conversation: the importance of technology to enable automation, connecting purpose to what's interesting for the candidate and how that's a differentiator in recruiting, and the need to really take a balanced approach, particularly because different markets move at different speeds. We had a fascinating conversation.
Lauren, welcome. Before we get started, because we have a wealth of things to talk about, we'd like to do a little bit of icebreaker and see if we can loosen you up a little bit, get you ready for some big discussions of talent and strategy. So, from the Department of Hard-Hitting Questions, late night or early riser?
definitely early riser.
If you're an early riser, are you coffee, are you tea, or something
Coffee.
else?
Absolutely.
When you're hiring, automation or personalization?
Well, I think personalization is key in talent, but automation enables us to do that. So if you can automate all of the administrative processes, it gives capacity back to the talent team to be able to focus on the personal touch.
So after a hard week working with talent and you want to get away or relax a little bit for the weekend, read a book, binge watch a show.
Oh, binge watch a show. My husband's in the film industry, so, I have to support him.
Absolutely you do. What's the biggest thing people don't understand about hiring?
The complexity behind the scenes. I think most people think that when they need to go hire someone, you just go out and you find them and bang, there you go, you've got your next person in your team. But
Right.
There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that talent teams do in order to ensure that the right talent is available for the right roles at the right time.
Absolutely. So let's dive in a little bit and get in more into the details of how you do that and how you think about that and where you think this market is going. But before we get into the weeds for a second, let's step back and just give a little bit of context for you and your business. So introduce us to CHEP and then talk to us a little bit about your role at CHEP and your remit today.
Sure. So CHEP is a company that's owned by Brambles. Brambles is an ASX-listed organisation, and it's been around since 1875. But CHEP was essentially purchased from the government after the World War II when a bunch of equipment was left by the Americans. It's called the Commonwealth Handling Equipment Pool that the government took over, and then they wanted to privatise that. So it was all forklifts, pallets, and that's how our business today exists essentially. So it's a circular economy. It's a product that we rent out to our customers. It goes through the supply chain across all the different customers and then comes back to us. So a fully sustainable business that strives for zero waste and also a positive impact to the environment.
And talk to me a little bit about your role in your team. What's that look like today, and what geographic footprint are you trying to cover?
Yeah, sure. So I joined in January this year, so I'm pretty new to the business, to be honest. My role came out of the evolution of this market. So I look after the IMETA region and the APAC region. So IMETA stands for India, Middle East, Turkey, and Africa. And then APAC is obviously some Asian countries plus Australia and New Zealand. They brought the two markets together that sits under the president based here in Australia, and my HRVP is also based here. And so our role is to understand the talent needs across those markets and really support from a talent acquisition standpoint. And I have a pretty strong partnership with my talent and learning division as well. So we're working really closely together to evolve how we look at talent internally and externally to enable that, better talent mobility. We're obviously a global company. We like to grow and develop our talent globally. A lot of people average tenure is around 10 years in the business, if not more. So, people really stay. It's a great culture.
Which points to some sophistication and precision around how you think about hiring.
Yeah.
And then enabling them to, and growing them in a way that helps them, serve the business and decide to stay around.
Yeah, and I think when you think about how businesses are evolving at a rapid pace today, and particularly with digitisation impacting every organisation, pretty much everyone I've worked in, they've been on some sort of digital transformation journey. How do we evolve those skills? How do we support our employees within our existing organisation to evolve their skills so that they can grow with the business as it changes? And then also what new skills do we need to bring in also to help accelerate that change?
Well, and this show is called Higher Thinking, and I want to use what you just said as a jumping point on to thinking globally, because very much you have a global remit in your role. There's a lot of different complexity there, different markets, different requirements for talent, different pieces of the business. And as you said, you're still fairly new. This is not, but this is not your first time thinking about talent holistically. Zoom out and give me your perspective on the world of talent in middle of 2023, and with an eye towards that transformation. How has the world shifted, and what are the big trends that you're looking at as you think about talent today and how to think about matching talent to opportunity in the future?
If we think about talent as an opportunity today, if I think back 10 years ago, talent and talent acquisition always sat very separately. So
Right.
Talent sat within the HR function as an OD, specialisation, so organisational development. Talent acquisition was quite transactional, and it was seen to be going external, finding the new talent that the business needed and bringing them into the business. There wasn't a lot of connection between how we thought about talent internally, succession planning, transitioning through roles. Typically that was managed by HR, and we were, as a talent acquisition function, often told, where there was a prioritised talent that we wanted to consider for the role, and we would run the process. But now, fast forward to 2023, and the evolving way talent works within market as well. You've got people talking about the gig economy, contingent workforce. People want flexible careers. So and you've got 3 different generations now in the workforce as well. So people are looking differently depending on where they are in that cycle as to how they want to operate and how they want to work. And people are working longer. I mean, there's no longer that discussion about retirement, when are you
Right.
going to retire? I think people look more to purpose and how can you add value or live to a purpose, and whether that be volunteer work, doesn't have to be paid work, but I guess people want to remain engaged in some way so that they feel a sense of purpose in society, and so how we think about talent as an organisation, we need to be cognizant of those mindsets as well as we evolve.
Absolutely, and you hit on several different things that I want to step through for a second, a little deeper. And from my perspective, I've got 2 teenage children, and so the notion of even what does a job mean now for them as they are about to become early career people is totally different than it was when I was their age and thinking about what's next and going to university. How do you think about that, the generation coming up, and what's important about how do you build that connection in a way that's going to help make CHEP a preferred employer for them?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because our industry, being a business to business company, is not as visible to the general population, so to speak. So if I say I work for CHEP, the pallets, people go, oh, what's that? The blue things that sit under. You might go to Costco and see, these wooden things sitting under all the product. Oh, yeah, okay, I know, I understand what you're talking about. But it doesn't come top of mind, particularly to that younger generation. They probably think Google, Microsoft, all of the latest technology companies, because when people think digital or evolution, they think technology. But there's a lot of technology in companies like supply chain and distribution and transport companies, and a lot of great engineering evolution that's happening in that space. So we just have to get better at promoting that through those younger generations and helping them understand what the career pathways are and what the opportunities are that are available to them. So I think the whole branding and promotion and EVP of career mobility and career progression within our industry is probably key for us to get to that younger group, and then amplifying or demonstrating how we're actually supporting our workforce in their own career growth, and the learning and development that we provide to our existing employees is also critical as people progress through their career. If you can provide a vision and a purpose for the organisation that resonates with people, then they'll attach to that through their own purpose-driven motivation. And that's how you, I guess, connect talent with opportunity, right? If you get to the underlying motivation and driver for the individual, and you can meet that with what the organisation is also trying to deliver and drive commercially and for their customer, then you've got a win-win. And so I guess it's trying to create an environment where you can leverage different workforce types, so bring skills in where you need them, perhaps where you might have a short-term project need that you need to drive through the organisation. How do you tap into those skills in the market that you might not need within the business ongoing, but you just need for that period of time? And that's kind of where the gig economy plays a role. But then also, how do you leverage your workforce internally? And this is where talent marketplaces come in, to say people want to grow and develop their skills, but 70% is done on the job. So how do we pull people into key projects to give them that exposure and that skill development, but at the same time still enable them to deliver in their existing role? And through that, they then bridge the gap between what they know and what they don't know to enable them to progress in their career.
Yeah, and to that point, how do you think about holistically, because I want to come back to what you said just in a second, but backstepping a second with the role of skills. What everyone wants to hire for skill. We can all agree skills are a good idea. Some is good, more is better. And different roles, different jobs, different geographies have different skills. How do you think about the assessment of skills and what's critical there?
Yeah, this is a tricky one because I'm a big believer in skills. Skills are transferable, and I think, in the past people always hired for experience, and I can talk to, FMCG was a prime example of an industry where they wouldn't look outside of their industry. Like, I'm going back pre-2000 now when I worked at Morgan & Banks, and, trying to help people understand that a consumer marketer working for a technology company, whilst they don't necessarily know the customer distribution channels of FMCG, know how to market.
Right.
Similarly with HR, and I'm probably a good example. I've worked across about 6 different industries, but I know talent acquisition. So my skills and knowledge were transferable across those industries, even though I didn't know what the organisation's product or customer base was until I really got in there and started to understand. I mean, this is my first time in supply chain, as an example. So, skills play a critical role. How we assess for them depends on, I guess, the role and the level within the organisation. So assessing volume, call centre customer service skills would be different to how you assess someone going into a senior leadership role, for example.
Right.
But one example of how we did that at Allianz, we partnered with HireVue. That wasn't intentional, but we partnered with HireVue to help us identify where you get a large volume of applications, how do we quickly disseminate the ones that are better suited to the role that we're looking to hire for, so that we can maximise the time we spend talking to the individuals and less time at the back end screening through resumes.
Absolutely. And that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of trying to understand what are the skills and is there that connection with, the opportunity.
Yeah.
When you think back on your career journey, are there particular inflection points that resonate for you, either because of something like a technology innovation like a LinkedIn, or maybe the other side of that coin is a particular leader, somebody you worked with that really helped you think about the art of the possible in terms of the strategic impact of talent in the business?
Yeah, I think my time at American Express was a pretty big growth period, because they were also going through an HR transformation, and the VP of HR there was really big on bringing the function together. And so that was my first foray into understanding the connection between talent and talent acquisition. I got a lot of insight. I was part of the succession planning workshops. I got a lot of insight into talent mobility. We really, globally, we had that RPO account, so we were part of the organisation globally and seen as a true partner rather than just a kind of in-sourced, outsourced solution, so to speak. So I got a lot of exposure to HR strategy. I got a lot of exposure to the business strategy, which really helped me connect the dots in how talent flowed through an organisation and the importance of understanding that internal, external landscape. And so that really drove my passion over the last 10 years to work towards a total view of talent. So how do we bring those functions together in partnership and really maximise that knowledge to better enable that talent mobility mapped against or benchmarked against that external capability?
And one of the themes, Lauren, as you talk and think about your career, is you've been involved in multiple transformations. And how many of those are specifically around talent and HR transformation versus either a global, either strategic, rethink or transformation, or more recently, maybe the digital? Everybody's going through some version of digital transformation, which nets out to we just need to move smarter, faster, and more effectively to do what we do and use technology around it. How do you think those things, the notion of transformation, intersects those different vectors in the business?
Well, interestingly enough, and not by design, every organisation I've been into seems to have a long history, but has also been at a point where they're evolving, both from an HR standpoint and also from, how they go to market, so the digital impact. And, my choices were always based on how do I broaden my skills, evolve my learning. So Western Union was a regional expansion, so I got that exposure to regional countries. American Express was moving out of FMCG into financial services, so I could expand industry sectors. And then Allianz was had a bit of a regional play, but was connected globally, and they were going on that big transformation journey. But they had a long way to go. So they were starting from quite a unique base where they didn't have a lot of digital capability within the business, so they were having to rapidly build that. And COVID was an interesting example of that, where we didn't have the internal technology to support our call centres to work from home. So they had to rapidly mobilise laptops for 6,000 people across the organisation. Well, not 6,000, 2/3 of that, because obviously the corporate people had laptops. But we had to build an infrastructure that wasn't currently there overnight. So that rapidly transformed the business. on what would have been a much slower journey. I've found that the HR and the business transformation seem to go hand in hand, because when you're digitizing a business, you're also looking at HR and how we digitally
Yes.
enable our function. And so leveraging technology to create efficiencies, to build, to give better capacity back to the individuals within those teams to drive value for the organisation through that human touch is really where I see the value.
What role does HireVue play in trying to build that connection and that application of technology to actually fulfill business outcomes?
So interestingly enough, I've used HireVue across four organisations now. So American Express, we used it for call centre. We introduced the video interviewing there. When I went to Western Union, we were building a technology centre in India. We used CodeView as part of our assessment technique to identify talent, because it was all tech-based engineering. And then at Allianz, we introduced it for the call centre with the automated AI component, which enabled us to also understand alignment to culture and capability for skills within the call centre so it was the evolution of your product, which also changed how we used it. And now we're just also looking to roll it out here at CHEP for our interview scheduling, and potentially also to support our service centre hiring down the track.
What do you think are the big opportunities in talent, and what advice would you give or direction would you give to talent leaders about what do they need to be thinking about, not just for the balance of this year, but over the next couple of years as you look to address those changes and help the organization deliver?
How do we evolve to a skills-based hiring approach is something that I'm really interested in. And I say that because hiring managers still have that mindset that they need to hire someone like them, or they
Right.
look for someone who has the experience that they had or came up the same career pathway that they did. So it really narrows the field, and it doesn't enable us to take a future-focused look at how we're evolving skills in the organisation. And when you want to hire for the future state of the business, sometimes you're hiring for skills that aren't necessarily in the team right now, but we know we're going to need for the future.
Exactly.
So how do we get them to think differently about that and understand, or look forward to understand, what balance of skills do we need to deliver right now, but also will be valuable for the future? So that's one thing. Talent marketplace, that internal mobility that I talked about before. How do we better enable talent in the business to tap into skills that they don't currently have and grow their careers within the business so that they feel fulfilled and and maintains engagement, and also maintains that stability within the organisation of that intellectual property that they currently have. There's a lot of value in the people that sit within our business, and over time how they build that knowledge and create that sense of trust and enablement. So we want to retain those people, and we want to help them maximise their potential through their own growth. So people need to own their own career development, but we also as an organisation have an obligation to provide those opportunities for growth.
Yeah, and I gravitate to the turn on a phrase you used about demonstrating your potential. That seems to me part of the core to unlocking better outcomes when you think broadly about diversity and equity and inclusion. How do you think about the art of the possible in terms of diversity and equity?
Yeah, so it's a big focus for our organisation at the moment, and we've got a global team that are purely specifically focused on diversity, equity and inclusion. And equity is key in that statement. It's about understanding the differences of where people are at and providing an environment that enables all people to be successful, whether they've got neurodiverse challenges, whether they've got disability that needs special accommodations, even just acknowledging that everyone comes with a different mindset or comes from a different culture or a different upbringing. How do we create an environment that enables people to feel like they belong? I think it's an ongoing challenge for everyone, and it's a tricky one when we start talking about how we measure it as well, because then that also requires capturing that data and
Right.
self-disclosure, and there's a whole lot of challenges around that from a privacy perspective as well.
There is, and there's also, I think, that intersection of culture. And and culture is an evolving thing, and the notion of culture and fit and belonging sort of might be a Venn diagram, but it's hard to actually measure and orchestrate for and try to the notion of how do we find and invite people that are going to amplify and expand our culture.
Yeah, and how do we create a culture that enables people to feel like they belong when they're all coming from different walks of life, so to speak. I think the important thing is being completely transparent about what we stand for as a business, what our culture stands for, so to speak. So, what do we do? What's our purpose? What's our vision? If that resonates with the individual, then they self-select in.
Yes.
And I think that's where it helps you to get that connection and that right fit, so to speak.
Yeah, it strikes me that is becoming increasingly important, particularly and you would know because you're closer to multiple geographies than I am, but it seems like the feedback across every single geography of clients we talk to is there's no situation where somebody from a talent leadership perspective says, oh, we have more candidates than we know what to do with. In fact, it's the reverse. We've got more jobs and we've got more opportunities than we have the right caliber of candidates to fill them. And it strikes me that maybe that intersection of purpose and mission and vision and being declarative about what that means for the organization is part of helping find the people that really are the fit for not just what are you doing today, but how do we grow with you for tomorrow?
Yeah, and I think about telling the story in an authentic way, or being really clear on why we're doing what we do, and enabling people visibility of that in the truest sense of the word, not just corporate speak, I think is what helps people identify whether that's the right environment or business for them or not. I think sometimes there's a challenge with evolving organisations about what we need for the future versus what we need for now can create difficulty in getting the right talent, because sometimes you want a blend that doesn't necessarily exist in market, and that's often the challenge. That's often the challenge of talent functions, where the hiring manager creates a role of the ideal, what they think they need in their business,
right?
But that role actually has never been done before. So where do you find those skills, or how do you get that combination and bring that into the business? And so sometimes it's an education for the business that they need to, train for one part of it and hire for the other. So it's getting that right balance is often the hard bit.
Thinking about strengths and weaknesses of TA leaders in 2023 and beyond, like what are your headlines in terms of, things you're thinking about to either over-index on as you look at the market and talk to your peers, or things that maybe were very important a couple of years ago that are maybe a little less important from a go-forward perspective?
I mean, the things that are most important to me are ensuring that the talent acquisition team has the right tools to do the job, is scaled in the right way so that they have the capacity to add value back to the organisation and don't fall into that trap of that transactional delivery, because when the volumes are too high, you don't have the capacity to be strategic, and you can't support the business to be in that always hiring mindset because you're just chasing your tail all the time. So I think you achieve that balance through enabling the right structure for the organisation depending on where they're at, and also having the right technology and automation of processes that removes some of that administrative burden from the team so they can focus on what they do best.
So my last question for you then, Lauren, is the kind of wrap up question. What would be your guidance or your golden rule when you think about the opportunity to connect talent to opportunity? What's most important?
For me, I think understanding people's core motivations and drivers is critical to aligning them to the role that's best going to suit them. And so if we can do that at scale, then we can support our organisations in the right way.
Well, thank you. It has been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for sharing your expertise, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thanks, Pat.
You bet.
That was an amazing conversation with Lauren. I was really struck by her passion for people and the inspiration that she provides to her team and to candidates. A few things really jumped out at me. Number one, culture, and particularly the alignment around vision and values and purpose, is a key differentiator for your talent brand. And bringing that to life may be the difference between capturing the talent and hiring them or not, number one. Number two, very, very consistently, she talked about the importance and the need to automate talent and to really enable the team. At the scale she's operating at and her team is operating at, it's all about technology and automation to facilitate and really unlock those talent experiences and to find the right talent. The last piece of the puzzle here is being authentic in that delivery and having a balanced approach that works across regions, because what that looks like in terms of talent sophistication and process here in Sydney is different in Turkey, different in India, different across Africa. And Lauren's doing an amazing job of trying to balance a lot of competing priorities and really deliver for the organization. So it was a fantastic conversation, and I'm looking forward to more of those here in Sydney.